I am Lindsay Mossa. I work for the American Geosciences Institute, and in the Education and Outreach Department, we make a lot of partnerships with organizations like Seequent to make lessons and other activities about great products like Visible Geology. So just to talk a little bit about Earth Science Week, it is the second full week of October every year, and we make a lot of educational materials for K through 12 educators, but also for informal educators as well, to be able to use products in their classrooms and with their students. So we really want to support education in all geosciences. So our theme this year was Earth Science Everywhere, and so Visible Geology is one of those products that really applies to everywhere. So it's something that's interactive for students to use, but then also, you can talk about anywhere on Earth in order to understand it a little bit better. So we make a toolkit every year, so a lot of that is available online on our interactive toolkit. But to show you this year's resources, let me click on this. And so you can see some of the products that we make. We have posters, and everything comes with educational activities. So all of this is free and available for educators or anyone who wants to share the geosciences with really an audience of any age. And so going on this website here, in the other resources section, this is where we're going to find that lesson for Visible Geology. And it can be used as a whole, it can be used in pieces, and what you can do with it is get people to interact with geologic processes and structures. And so looking at the lesson for Visible Geology, there are instructions that, like I said, you can take as a whole or just do little sections of it to look at specific aspects of this interactive. So one of the things we want to focus on is one of the most popular models, which is of the Grand Canyon. And so lots of classrooms around the world are learning about the Grand Canyon and how it was formed, because there's a lot of geologic processes that you can look at just in this one feature alone. So we know that educators out there are probably already using models. And so this one here, for example, is a great model with a ton of information that might be too much for what students need. So there's a lot of detail here with the ages, the names of the formations, and what they look like. But it's also really an out of context cross-section that they need a little bit more information about. And that's exactly what Visible Geology can help to do. So we also have other great models like this that give a 3D view of the area, but again, missing some of that interactivity that a lot of students really need. And so with the product of Visible Geology, they are able to look at that same information. So you can see the topography is labeled on here, but they're able to move it around to be able to get a more interactive experience, looking at the different layers from different angles. So even from underneath, which a lot of those models are not going to be able to provide. So other than that, there are more interactive features here that we really want students and teachers to use in order to show the geology of the area. So you can turn the topography on and off, but you can also turn on and off a cross-section of the area that very similar to that first diagram that I showed, but it is much more interactive in that you know where it is. It's in context of the Grand Canyon, and so you're able to see the rock layers and how they vary over the space. And so we can also turn on and off a core feature on this. So you can see how the core differs from the cross-section, so how the rocks vary across the region, but again, in context of where it's coming from along the Grand Canyon model. And not only that, the best feature, I think, is highly interactive in that you can look at the history of how this area actually developed. Rather than just having a static image, you're able to click through the steps of the history of this area. So we start with the beds, so you can see it grays out the areas that are not being featured here. But then you can see now we're going to add a pluton, and you can see exactly where the pluton affected. And again, looking from that from below as well, because this was modeled after the real thing. Then another pluton occurred, and you can see that happened in a slightly different area. And we continue to add those layers so that you can see the true history and the stepwise nature of how these different events led to what the Grand Canyon looks like today. And so that lesson plan that we made for this is going to walk you through how to do all of these features, and also some questions to ask students to really engage them with this material. So for example, those typical questions that you might ask, like what's the oldest layer, what's the youngest layer, but also what are the processes that led to what it looks like today. So another feature here is faulting. Then we can look at how the layers have tilted. And then we can look at that last unconformity to really talk about the steps and the geologic processes, not necessarily just the structures. And so along with this lesson, there are also instructions for how to do the pre-built models. So again, all of this is free and accessible. So there is a group code right here in the lesson plan that would allow you to access these pre-built models. And so it can show one single process at a time. So if you want to focus on faults, for example, you're able to use the models in here to look at different types of faults and how they compare to each other. And you can actually build the topography out a little bit different to show, specific examples of faults. They also have folds, unconformities, and a couple other real-world proxies that they've already built. So very famous angular unconformity in Tel Hero, and just being able to show those different features. But lastly, on the lesson plan that we developed, which are available here at the booth, you guys have copies left, right? Because it's so popular, just flying off the shelves. Students are actually able to build their own block models as well. So all of the features that you see built into the pre-built models, they can then go and interact with those in order to be able to build their own models. So wait, let me get into this public group and click on one of these. So when they click on the new here, they're able to completely create their own model. So they can add layers, they can change the thickness of the layers, and then add all of the features onto there. So they can, you can choose what events you want them to have, and they're able to define the different aspects of it in order to be able to look at different things within the model. And so because of that, this really has the versatility and interactivity and kind of feels like a game that gets students engaged with the processes that are going on in order to affect the rocks and just really make it so much more useful than just a straightforward model. So with that, I invite you to check out the lessons that they have here. There's a QR code to get to it, and then interact with that and let us know how it goes. Thank you so much.